Welcome to The Dose with Paddy and Belinda, your podcast for all things GLP1, Ozempic, Mounjaro, Saxenda and more. Sit back, relax and enjoy the conversation. Remember, none of the information contained within this podcast should be taken as personal medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare team before starting or changing any medical treatment. And you are very welcome along to another episode of The Dose. It is myself, Paddy Cunningham, and I am delighted to be joined live in studio as such with Belinda. Belinda, how are things?
Really good, Paddy.
This is the first time that we've done a dedicated podcast episode like this, as opposed to taking like the live audio or, you know, we've done dedicated microdose, all right, but this is the first full one for us.
Yeah, proper.
Proper,
innit?
Will I tell people what you're doing as we record this?
Please don't. Actually, you can. It's not live.
So as of the time of recording, I am sitting watching Belinda do her hair.
In the biggest rollers you've ever seen in your life. They're like 5 inches thick.
Oh God, I love it. I love it.
Paddy, I'm going out in a couple of hours.
Oh, lovely. What's on the cards for tonight?
No, absolutely nothing. Just dinner, tea, and probably a couple of porn star martinis.
Oh, I love an old porn star martini.
I know you do.
So Belinda, while you're mentioning that, does that mean you can have drink whilst you're on a GLP1 medication?
Well, I have been doing for the past 2 years, Paddy. How about yourself?
Yeah, I have too. So, obviously you've been on Ozempic and Mounjaro. I have been just on Mounjaro, and maybe we'll do a reintroduction in just a second as well. But that is definitely one of the questions that does come up time and time again, nearly every live or every kind of thing that I do is, can you drink when you're on one of these medications? Now, obviously, everybody's biology will react differently, but everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation, and also plan. Now, I would say that more so when you're on Ozempic, or maybe it's because I was only starting out when I was having adverse effects from alcohol on a GLP-1.
Yeah.
But obviously, having thought about it in the aftermath, it was because I was just starting out. My hunger suppression was phenomenal and I couldn't eat anything. And then I thought I could just have my few glasses of wine, but no. Absolutely not. Under no circumstances can you drink alcohol on a GLP-1 with no food in your stomach.
And now, in fairness, even if you're not on like Mounjaro or Ozempic, it's not the best advice to go out on the tear without food in your stomach now, Belinda. So I know. Yeah.
Well, who would do that?
I know. What do you mean at our age? We're only young ones. Yeah. So, Belinda, if this is somebody's first time listening to The Dose, give us a little spiel about who are you? You're give us like a 30 second like elevator pitch of who you are.
Okay, go. So my name is Belinda Hogan. I'm 49 years old. I have been on Ozempic, Mounjaro / Trulicity with just over 2 years. I lost all of my weight, like 99.9% of my weight on Ozempic in the first year. And I have been holding my own for the past year. So, which is unheard of for me. I would never, ever have held any weight loss that I ever had. But thanks to my GLP-1, I am.
That is amazing. Fantastic. Well done. And how much weight are we talking?
We're talking 65 pounds.
Wow. That's like very near 5 stone.
Yeah. I think it's over 5 stone, actually.
Is it? So
yeah. 12, 24, 48. Yeah.
14 pounds in a stone.
Yeah. 2 of those is 28.
Yeah.
28 is 20, 50.
56.
Yeah. What have I?
65. Welcome to Maths with Paddy and Belinda. But 65 pounds is phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, after look, I'm delighted, Paddy.
Yeah.
Now, I'm still chunky, but I'm happy.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely fine. Now you go. You've got 35 seconds, Paddy, because you talk more than I do.
Okay, right. Yeah, true. So I am Paddy. I am 42. I should think there. I'm 42. I started on Mounjaro about 22 weeks ago, roughly. It was the middle of June, so depending on when somebody, about 22 weeks ago. Before that, I had lost about 12-ish pounds in the couple of weeks before I started it. So my total since I started now is 71 pounds, which I think is just over the 5 stone mark. So pretty
amazing. But also just pop it in there as well that, Paddy, you would be considered a super responder to the medication. That's not everybody's journey. You are just one of the extremely lucky people.
I think it's probably a combination of things. One, as Belinda says, like being that kind of fast responder to the medication, and it's one of the things, again, my most popular video on TikTok, which is now over 400,000 views, is all about talking about the unreal expectations people have when they're starting on the medication. That people think, particularly in that first 4 weeks, I'm not losing weight. It's not intended for you to lose weight, really, in that first 4 weeks. That's really just a starting dose for your body to be like, grand, we're getting used to this. But there are some people like myself who our biology just reacts that bit quicker to it. And then obviously supporting that with the gym and with nutrition and stuff like that, just trying to give yourself, your body, the best chance of success. And it's just been, my body has played ball with me, and my mind has, which is the most important thing.
Which probably it never has worked in conjunction before.
And that's the thing. Like, I have lost weight before, but I know this is something that you can relate to as well very easily, but I've always relapsed.
Yes.
Because
you couldn't even count the amount of times, could you, Paddy?
No, like I think it's, you constantly feel like you're going upstream against the flow, like, you're doing the things, but just your mind just is not playing ball with you. That as much as you're going to the gym, as much as you're eating the food that you should be eating, that your mind is just still obsessed with food. And I've gone to behavioural change therapists about this as well, and that helped a bit, but it could not fix it. It couldn't do it. Now, as we know, there's an answer, because it comes down to biological inefficiency in the way that our GLP1, GLP receptors are working in our bodies, and that's what the medication is helping to balance out, which is phenomenal.
And just making sure that everybody knows that it's not curing.
Yes, and that's what we say, is that the treatment is just that. It is a treatment for biological inefficiencies. It is not a cure for learned habits or behaviours that still need work. They still need work when you're on this, So definitely.
And it's only a tool. It's just another tool.
Yeah, exactly. I really wish people could see you right now. It's like something.
Absolutely not.
It's like something out of Hairspray.
I know, it's good. Wait and see me later.
So
I'll actually put up a little clip on my stories just in case anybody wants to see them.
Okay, brilliant. So Belinda, you put out a microdose this week. Talking about emotional eating, and I think it was a really insightful one, and really, no pun intended, but really give, I think, people food for thought about how and why they lean into eating in their emotions. So I would love to go back 2 years with Belinda.
Oh God, do I have to, Paddy?
And I'd like to know, what was the switch in your mind where you thought, I need to do something?
Oh, yeah. I know the moment, the very moment, and it was a photograph.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was a photograph, and I didn't recognize the person that was in there in that photograph, because in my own mind, like, obviously you look in the mirror, but in my own mind, I had a completely different picture of me and who I was, but I seen that photograph and no way. No, and I thought that was the day. And previous to that, my aunt had said some mad thing about an injection, and I started laughing, and then went on and found it. And here we are 2 years later. Yeah. And after going through 3 of them.
And so I'm not going to let you off that easy. I want to dig more into this. So you seen the photograph.
Yeah.
Like, we all see photographs of ourselves that maybe we don't like from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Even people that don't have weight or stuff like that.
Yeah, and still not like the
But
photograph themselves. Yeah.
I'm assuming that the motivation wasn't, I want to lose weight so the next photo looks nicer. What was the desired outcome you were hoping to achieve what was the thing? Was there something more there? And other than just
the emotion that I felt when I seen the photograph? What did I think? What did I want to change?
Yeah,
is that what you mean?
Yeah, and why? Why did you want to change?
Because that wasn't who I thought I was. That's not who I envisaged myself as being at 47 years of age. That's just not who I wanted to be. I've never wanted to be that. I'll put the photograph up on my stories as well. Nobody would, So I changed my hair, got my teeth done, improved my skin, lost 5 stone, and here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. And I never stopped. 1 minute, Paddy, I did not stop.
Yeah.
I just didn't. And I'll just say on the back of that as well, having lost, and I know people won't want to hear this, but this is the truth. Having lost that 5 stone in 2 years, right, and having dieted for 30 years, I had to work harder in my dieting phases of life than any person I've ever known before.
Mm-hmm.
But I still had to work just as hard when I was on Ozempic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Paddy, I'm still working harder than anybody I know now.
Yeah. And where does I don't use the word motivation really, because I don't know if it is motivation, but what is your drive now? Like, so many people, they will start a regime or a diet or a workout or whatever, and a few weeks, few months in, they're like, oh, I can't be bothered anymore, there's too much effort. Like, you're at this now 2 years.
Yep.
How do you keep that focus when you get up out of bed in the morning to be like, yep, I'm still at this?
I will never, and I mean never, go back to looking like I did in that photograph, Paddy, ever in my life, ever again. And I swore to myself that things would only get better. And they did. Yeah. And they have. And they will. If I have anything to do with it, staying as healthy as I am now, I'll never, ever, ever stop doing that.
Yeah. And I think that's the really nice thing, is your focus is staying as healthy as I am now, not staying at this number now. It's staying as healthy as I am now. Because I think...
Oh my God, yeah.
It's such a more positive way to view things, is that kind of health first perspective, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Health. And as you said the other day, Paddy, you're doing this now for Paddy in 10 years' time.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm doing as well. I want to be 59 and I want to be able to be jumping around the place.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it takes a while to get there, doesn't it? I think once you've been through the weight loss phase of it, and then you kind of settle into it, and then you think about the health effects and that you're getting from it, it's then that you can start focus more on, longevity and health goals and things like that.
And what's the most amount of weight that you lost prior to Ozempic?
I would have lost 5.5 stone on keto back in 2018. Would have lost that quite quickly. Wasn't able to sustain that lifestyle at all. Even though I loved it, I did really enjoy it. And it did, like, my energy soared when I was on that. Obviously, no sugar, no carbs, no nothing, no life. It was great.
And so you lost 5.5 stone at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming there was a relapse at some stage.
There was a relapse of 6 stone. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my MO.
Yeah.
My whole life for 30 years. If I lost 2 stone, I would put up 2 stone 4 pounds afterwards. And that's the cycle of relapse. And that's one of the effects of obesity, is when you do lose weight, that you will put up that weight again in relapse, but you will also put up more, a few pounds extra with it. And I'm sure there's millions of people out in the world that know exactly what I'm talking about, because that's how, we got here in the first place.
And when you started relapsing at that time and you started regaining weight, was there a moment where you became aware that, shit, this is slipping?
Yeah, I knew every day. Yeah, and I just couldn't drag myself out of it.
Yeah.
Could not.
And I think that's an important thing, because I used to think people have great willpower to be able to continue to do this. And now I know it's like, no, your biology is working with you, not against you. And I can see that now. And such a hard time I used to give myself over not being able to do the things that I knew I should be able to do. This is the day whereby somebody commented on a TikTok about obese people will always be obese or something like that because they don't stop feasting on crap or something.
I've seen
something
that,
like that line. Yeah. And I just sat there and thought, oh my God, if only you knew what it's like in the mindset of somebody who has lived with obesity and has tried to change their life time and time and time again. And that, for me anyway, that deep sense of embarrassment and shame of not being able to keep something as simple, and I'm putting that in air, inverted commas, as simple as the amount of food that goes into my mouth. And
can I just intercept there? The difference between somebody being embarrassed and ashamed of not being able to do something is that when you're obese and you're ashamed and you're embarrassed, you wear that every single day. You think and you know that most people that are looking at you are judging you, and you're already ashamed and embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's not like, if you can't read or you can't write or you can't do this or you can't do that. It's an inner thing.
Mm-hmm.
But with obesity, it is a visual thing. You will never get away from it.
Totally.
Yeah. And it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And it's the first time I've thought about that, actually, since ever.
Yeah.
Really. Try not to.
I think, though, like, we beat ourselves up so much about it. Like at that time, so the most I had ever lost before was 7.5 stone. Now,
wow. When was that?
So that was during The Biggest Loser, the TV show.
Of course.
Now,
and what year? Remind everybody what year that was.
That was filmed 2010 into 2011. Now, my starting weight at that point was like nearly 3 stone less than what I reached recently, if you get me, like in terms of my heaviest. Yeah. So I was starting from a much lower point at that point. And I lost the 7.5 stone. And it's funny, you use words that I use. There's a snippet of an interview I did on RTE with Brendan O'Connor on the Saturday Night Show. And they had this big, massive life-size cutout of me when I was at my heaviest at that point. And they wheeled me out. I was behind it. And
oh, you had to jump out? Did you like jumping out?
Yeah, jumped out from behind it. And, there was a lot of, the narrative at that stage was very much about, that's the old Paddy. And I'm never going back to that. Because in my mind, I believed just because I'd lost the weight, I was fixed. I believed I'm fixed.
Nothing was fixed, Paddy. Not one single thing.
It was probably more broken I was, because my head was not where it needed to be. And I think at that time when I had lost the weight was probably the key time for me to lean in, like with some of the, counselling and therapists and stuff like that. But even at that, it still wouldn't have fixed the biological inefficiencies that we now know exist in the body. So over the space of the next 12 months, I regained the majority of my weight again. And maybe 18 months, I'll say, I regained the majority of my weight. And at that time, I was working I'd qualified as a personal trainer. I was training people. I was doing fitness classes. I was doing quite a bit of TV and media work, all about fitness. And it got to the point where I became so ashamed and embarrassed, and this is something I've mentioned to you before, that I took a step back from all that stuff. I stopped
Yeah.
doing personal training. I stopped doing fitness
You,
classes.
you turned down a load of
Yeah.
gigs for TV and everything, didn't you?
Stopped doing TV, stopped doing even radio. I remember one time News Talk had invited me in, and I'd been in with News Talk before, and they were always lovely. And I remember thinking, I'm in Dublin, I can do this interview. But the last time I was in with this interviewer, and they were so lovely, I was much smaller, and I felt like I'm going to be a fraud going in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just said no. I was like, I'm not.
And I'm not agreeing with you. I just know I know where you're coming from. I know the emotion you were feeling in it. Oh, I hated it, Paddy. And it's awful.
Yeah, and then you go into that catch-22 of then, and this is where there is the behavioural eating then as well, because I was feeling crap. It was like, oh, fuck it, I'm going to go and have my, do my stuff, like, you know, going to have the food. It's my friend. It's the thing that makes me feel good.
Suits you.
Yeah. It was my comfort, and very few people in my circle at the time were able to, I guess, relate to that, particularly the way that I lost my weight. There was only a handful, I know many other 10 other contestants maybe, that I knew could fully relate to my weight loss journey, and I knew some of those were struggling with their weight again. So I knew that the kind of novelty way, if we want to call it that, the way I lost my weight was very unique. So even just trying to talk about it, people sometimes struggle to even just grasp what I was talking about. So then I kind of just...
But why wouldn't they struggle?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they struggle? This is a concept that millions of people in the world have no idea about.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, and there's not a lot of people talking about it either. So, you know, nobody will. Can I ask you a quick question, Paddy? How did it impact you when you came out of The Biggest Loser and it had been broadcast on TV and everything? Everybody was so celebratory around you, and, you know, did you feel in that moment that, damn, this is it, this is what I've wanted, this is what I've waited for?
Like limelight wise, that didn't bother me, because I wasn't...
No, not like that, but
in terms of the weight side of things and the life, and being able to go in and buy any clothes I want, and being able to see a reflection in the mirror that I identified with, yes, absolutely.
Right, okay. And do you think that your emotions when you started to relapse, do you think that your emotions were more compounded due to the way you had lost it?
I think they were probably compounded because it was so public in that regard, yes.
That's what I mean.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
It was, wasn't it, Paddy?
Because, and by the way, I know some of those TV shows get very bad publicity and press and stuff like that, but I honestly will only ever have positive things to say about my experience with The Biggest Loser, in terms of the care team, in terms of the trainers, in terms of the people that were around. Aftercare that was available. If I'd have leaned into it, it was available. I didn't think I needed it, and of
course you didn't. Yeah. Why would you?
Because again, I thought I was fixed. I'd lost the weight, you know. But I think, and this probably sums it up a bit. I remember I went out in Dublin. And at the time, it had been aired on TV3, it had been aired on ITV, it was one of their primetime shows. It would have been common back then, I'd walk down the street and people would stop me. And that in itself was some added pressure. I didn't mind that, in fairness, because I don't mind people coming up and chatting. And even now, through different walks of life, people will come up and chat to me. But back then, it was definitely heightened. Like, even like walking down, you know, Regent Street in London, and somebody stopped me to have a talk, or, you know,
recognise you.
Yeah, recognise you from the telly. And I get it. I got, look, at this is part and parcel of what we've done. And then when I came home to Ireland, because I've been living in England when all that was on. So when I came home to Ireland, and then it was like amplified 10 times the amount of people that would come up to me. Like, I mean, my first night out in Dublin, swear to God, went out, and first night out, and I think we counted, my friends were counting how many people would come up to me. I was like, would you get away with that? People aren't going to come up to me, for God's sake. Like, and there was nearly 20 people that night alone come up, like, talking to me, wanting to be like, oh my God, watching the telly. Or now, I had been on the Saturday night show earlier that night as well, and stuff like that. But like, it was very surreal. But one of the things I remember is and this kind of ties in with the pressure and some of the shame and the guilt maybe what it is. I remember looking on Twitter afterwards, and first of all, that was a mistake, but being tagged in a post that somebody had done is, oh my God, Paddy from The Biggest Loser is out here getting shit-faced down in drinks like there's no tomorrow.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's only publicity for them. That's all they're doing, isn't it?
I know, but I was like, but it just made me like think about what mindset do people be in online? And look, we have both gotten. Well, you're a criminal. Let's not forget from some of the comments a few weeks ago you got from someone.
Yeah. Can I just ask you a question, Paddy? So you had done all that. You were in London, and then you came home, and it was 10 times more adoration and well wishes and excitement and everything like that. And you must have been on top of the world. And I know this is probably a hard question, but can you pinpoint a reason or an emotion as to why the relapse occurred? Do you think it was different to the other relapses, or was it that's just the way it was going to go for you anyway? You were predisposed to that happening to you. So
given how quickly the weight regain started happening, like I am talking within single digits of weeks, the weight started to come back on. And this was when I was still training as a personal trainer. This is when I was doing all these other things. I was going to the gym, all that kind of stuff. In my mind, I was still being driven towards food, even though I didn't need it. And it was like, as I do explain it now, that kind of idea of what food noise is, now that there's terminology for it. But that constant voice in the head, go get the food, go get the food, go get the food, you need the food, you need the food, you need the food, you better get the food. And not being able to say no to that as I thought it was, and hence that's why I thought, oh, I've bad willpower.
Oh my God, just willpower? That's all you need, wasn't it?
And then there definitely was other events, like particularly like if there was a stressful situation, there was one event in particular that I remember that sticks with me, and this was where I was like, okay, I'm going to engage with a therapist on this. I had been at work, and the team that I was working with at the time had worked a 13-hour day. We were working a 13-hour day. And I had gone to see, look, can we order some pizzas in or something like that? Because we would have done that from time to time. I was like, look, the guys are doing overtime. They're like here 13 hours today, like to try and do this for the company. Can we just get a couple of pizzas in? Like, it would have cost like 50 quid. Do you know, that's what we're talking about. And I was told no. And I felt so annoyed for the rest of that day that I just felt so annoyed and anger at us not looking after those people right. I felt that day, and I couldn't control it. This was the thing. I didn't have the control of that situation, and that drove the emotion in me. So going home that night, I remember it as clear as day as though it was yesterday. I pulled in to the petrol station, Maxall near Sandyford in Dublin, near the flyover, and I went in to get petrol. And I bought a 6-pack of wagon wheels, thinking I'll have one of them with a cup of tea when I go home. That was the intent when I bought it. I'll have one of those when I get home with a cup of tea. By the time I had travelled home 25 minutes,
nothing left.
Every single one of those wagon wheels was gone.
Yeah.
And I sat in the car and I was like, what the fuck has just happened? What?
Had you not done that before? Was that your first?
I think so. I had engaged with, I guess, periods of binging on food, and I would have been aware that I was eating a lot of food in a short period of time. But
and in secret?
Yeah, in secret. But in this was the instance whereby the intent was something very different when I bought the food. When I bought the wagon wheels, the intent was very different. I had no interest in having it, but as soon as I got into the car and just started thinking more about how annoyed I was at work that day, and then
on each bite,
I was feeling better. I was getting that sugar hit. I was getting that kind of, okay, I am now controlling how I feel, so therefore I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And but like it was like a haze. Like I was in some.
But Paddy, I spoke about it yesterday on the microdose as well. It's never about the food.
No.
Never.
And maybe that was it. Maybe that was the turning point where I knew this isn't about the food. This is about what has happened today. And after that, I think I sat for about maybe 2 weeks afterwards, and I was like, I like that incident, and still now, I can remember it clear as day. That was like, I need to do something about this. And that's where I found a phenomenal CBT therapist that was in Sandyford. She doesn't do it anymore, and I'd love if she did, because it would have been amazing to refer people to her. But and I remember, like, I went through, I don't know, 6 maybe sessions or something like that. And I remember we spoke about a few different things, and there was one session alone whereby she's like, Paddy, all I want you to do is say, I am awesome. That's all I want you to say. I sat and I bawled my eyes out for about 40 minutes. I could not say those words because I did not believe them about myself.
Yeah.
And
you must have had an awful lot of realizations then.
Oh God, yeah. Like, I mean, we did.
It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
You know.
Like we did things like, and even opening up about this to, my partner, because again, I was keeping this secret about the fact that I was going to go to the sessions. And then one of the things that they suggested was, that I get like a whiteboard or that, and that I add things that I'm proud of, and that I encourage my partner to add things on too.
Nice.
So therefore I had to kind of open up about the treatment and what I was doing in that, and that was really good. That was a good tool that was used. As was, and I still have the notes. They come up every now and again. I think they might be on my Google Docs or something, but maybe that could be a whole other episode. But about how I felt over the first few days after I started session 1, and reading it back now. If somebody handed it to me and didn't tell me who it's from, I'd be like, oh my God, that
poor person.
That person needs a hug.
Yeah. I've just gone through 16 months of it, health coach as well, through Beyond BMI. And it's just, I think everybody needs it.
Yeah.
That's on the journey that we're on. I think everybody needs it in some shape or form.
Yeah. And I think we're and this is one of the things that I know we're both advocates of, is that multidisciplinary approach, especially when you're starting out. I think it is so important that you have somebody that can be your support and your shoulder to lean on nutritionally and mental health wise and behavior change wise and stuff like that, particularly when you're starting out. It's so important.
I think especially as well, if you, I don't know how to say this, but if you don't have the realization yourself that maybe you are a binge eater, or you are an emotional or secret eater, or, and I'm sure you did as well through CBT, but through the sessions with my health coach, I had so many realizations about myself, Paddy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't be able to speak the way I'm speaking now about my past, only for I went through all of that with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get her on here, definitely.
But isn't it amazing how, like, I'd often think, how do you speak and how do you care for your best friend? And then how does that relate to how you care and how you speak about yourself and to yourself? And if there's a gap there, and for most people there definitely is a gap, and I think particularly for people in our space that we're in, and the journeys we're on, I think even more so, it just goes to show how harsh we can be on ourselves.
We are to ourselves, 100%. Yeah.
So in terms of, if we come fast forward to today, okay, and where things are now for you. So 65 pounds down, you've done Ozempic, you were on Mounjaro 4 months, 5 months.
4 months, I think.
Ish,
Yeah.
yeah, in and around that.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest realization you've had over the last 2 years?
Oh, that's such a big question, isn't it? I suppose if I bring it down to the bare bones of it, it's having the realization and finding out what relapse meant.
Yeah.
And that there was a name for it.
As opposed to just falling off the wagon again.
The wagon, exactly. Yeah. And when you find out exactly what relapse is in terms of weight loss, weight management, obesity, it's a bloody hell of a long way away from falling off the wagon.
Yeah.
And with that, with those realizations come like just the ability to be kinder to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Realization that maybe, that this wasn't my fault all along. And that's a tough pill to swallow as well.
Yeah.
Because you think to yourself, like, God damn it, like, why is it taking me 30 years to figure this out? Why have I had to live for 30 years and only get, but anyway, it's just, that was one of my big realizations.
The other thing that I think on that can be tough is that you can have that realization that that obesity is not your fault. But other people around you might not have that realization, and this is where the idea of the stigma and the embarrassment and shame, although you're feeling better about yourself, you can still regularly come up against that that stigma from other people. And I very much lean into it now. I didn't at the start, but now, and particularly if it's on comments or something like that, because like I would have been the type that would very much want to avoid conflict, like on social media and that, but now I absolutely lean into educating those people as best as I can, and indeed people around me, like as well. Like if someone makes a reference, you're just on the skinny jab, I was like, no, let's roll that back there a bit now. I am in the gym 3 to 4 times a week. I am watching my food to make sure that I'm getting enough protein and fiber and my hydration in and all that kind of stuff. And then those efforts are being supported by the medications there. But I am doing the work. I am doing, as I kind of said when I started this journey, the medication does not burn fat.
Absolutely not. If that's what people think, and people do think that. Yeah,
it's not a fat burner. Like it does not burn fat. It helps you feel more stable, so that when you put in the effort to lose weight, that your body will work with you.
Yeah, and satiated as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, are we finished with that big, deep, and meaningful segment?
Paddy, I'm exhausted. I definitely need a drink after this.
You see, this is the joy of going unscripted and just like YOLOing it.
I know, because we've never done this. Usually we'll have a little chat for 2 minutes and they bang, 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 we're doing this, and this.
Okay.
But this is all your fault. You started this. I think you knew what you were doing as well. You always do, Paddy.
As I said to you before when we first did our live, and you're like, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? So for people that don't know, I also work in radio, and that can often involve in lots of interviews and stuff like that. So I guess that, and even in my day job, I work as a manager. So like I have a deep curiosity about humans. So I think we'll rarely ever run out of things to talk about. But
you know what? It does as well. All of your background in radio and interviewing, that it literally gives me the opportunity to sit back and think, Paddy's got this, it's going to be grand. And I wish I was joking, Paddy, but I'm not.
Okay, I'm going to hang up on you now. Okay, then the next 10 microdoses are all you.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of segments, let's change it up a bit, okay? So one of the other ideas that we haven't really spoken about before much on our lives or stuff like that is the double dose. So I'm going to insert a little jingle here for the double dose. The double dose is where we are going to take a look at what is some of the news coverage that is happening around medications like Ozempic, Mounjaro, Saxenda, etc. GLP1 medications, okay? There is a lot. A lot comes from America. There has been some in Ireland over the past few weeks. There has been some in the UK as well. Two of the ones... So the double dose is going to be two news stories or two themes. So the first one, Belinda, is about some of... I'm going to put a headline on it of scaremongering in the press.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a tragic story out today in relation to a beautiful woman who... passed away in England, and the headlines are all reading that nurse's death is linked to weight loss drug, and of course that headline is going to grab your attention. When I first saw it this morning, I thought that this was going to be a fake version of one of the medications, is what I thought. And then I read and saw that it wasn't, that it was actually to do with a pharmacy prescribed version of tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro. And then initially I was like, oh, okay, what's this? And then as I started reading more, I'm like, oh, okay, so there seems to be a little bit more to this. So the story kind of is essentially that this lady died, and what the death certificate kind of has reported is that there's multiple things that are listed: organ failure, septic shock, pancreatitis, as being the immediate cause of death. But the use of prescribed tirzepatide is also recorded as a contributing factor. Now, there's also like multiple other reports of adverse side effects and stuff like that as a result to Mounjaro and the other medications as well. That's important to call out. But I think this is where you could read that in isolation and be like, oh my God, this medication killed a person.
Yeah.
But that's not what the actual news story is stating, particularly where it says that it was a contributing factor. Now, obviously, we don't know the full details and want to be very sensitive to that. But if we look at paracetamol, there's literally hundreds of people a year die from taking paracetamol. And it's not headline news. Mm-hmm. Every medication is going to have a risk. Every single medication is going to have a risk. And I think, you know, it seems like the sepsis and the pancreatitis is the kind of the main cause here. This lady had only been on the tirzepatide for a very short period of time. I think she was only on the starting dose, I think it was it?
She was just into her second week.
Yeah. And it would be so easy to get caught up in that headline and be scared about starting the medication or be scared about something bad happening to you.
But Paddy, isn't that the point of it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Of the headline, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because again, newspapers are all there to sell papers and to get you to click their website. That is the whole idea. You know, absolutely.
Whereas, and that's the reason that we're highlighting this as a story, because it's just those newspapers and their clickbait.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna look at headlines like that, you have to read into it. You really do. You can't just look at it and then just put it away and think, oh my God, that's just what's happened.
Yeah. And it's similar, you were saying they're similar from the US about the compound version.
Yeah, so there was like 100 hospitalizations and 10 deaths in the United States. And they interviewed the Novo Nordisk CEO, and he said he honestly, he's quite alarmed by what they're seeing in the USA now, because patients truly believe that they are being sold semaglutide. Mm-hmm. You know, Ozempic, Wegovy, but they're not. They're being sold a product that's called a compound. Yeah. And it's not the drug that they should be taking at all. I haven't looked into it now about the compound, but I think we will need to, because it's coming up more and more. Unless you have, do you know about it, Paddy?
The new medications that are up and coming.
No, the compound.
Oh, the compound. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
So basically, in the US, basically pharmacies are able to mix up essentially their own version of these medications under certain rules. It's actually something that has been in the press over there very recently, because there basically is a way of working that if there is a medication in shortage, such as tirzepatide or semaglutide, so i.e. Ozempic or Mounjaro, Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, they have the copyright for those, for essentially, or the patent or whatever you want to call it, for like, I think well into maybe the 2030s or something like that. Crazy amount of time. But if either company is not able to fulfill the need or the demand for it, then there's these compound pharmacies that are allowed to make up variations of it.
And only in the case of shortages.
Yes.
Is that
now
supposedly?
Yes. So where this also comes into play, though, is that usually the compounds will be cheaper and more accessible for people. Mm-hmm. So recently there was a ruling that these compounds had to stop because the shortages were over. And a load of people went up in arms, and the FDA that approved them got some backlash, and they've rolled it back now until they do more kind of looking into it. But essentially that's what a compound is. It's kind of like when you'd go to your pharmacy and you'd be like, I'll go and get a tonic, the magical tonic that the pharmacy would make up for you. It's kind of like that, where they would
literally a tonic.
where they would make up a variation, their version of Ozempic or their version of Mounjaro at a reduced rate, and very popular. There are thousands of people, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people in America using compound pharmacies, and they're legitimate pharmacies. They're not black market. These are respectable pharmacies. They're all above board, all that kind of stuff. But I think the thing that we need to look at, and I'm going to take quote here from one of the articles about this tragic event in England, and it's from a professor of metabolic medicine. And he's also the chair of the UK government's obesity mission, and he himself, and like, this is one of the most expert people in this area, and he's saying, look, it's difficult. He's like, cause and effect in single cases where patients die is difficult to ascertain. The trials that are done on these medications are very robust in trying to establish safety, that the drugs generally have substantial benefits that outweigh the risks. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the thing as well, is that you need to look at what is the risk of living and continuing to live with obesity versus taking a medication. Every medication has a side effect, like particularly, and I think a great example of this is if ever you're in America or you see any of the American TV ads about medications, nearly every single one of them nearly ends with could cause death. Like at the end, like, it's just crazy, their ads over there, Yeah. So that's the other extreme. But I think it does highlight something, though, and I think this might be quite unique to the UK at the moment, about how easy it is to get these medications in the UK. It is so easy.
It's crazy. I was telling you this, I took part in a documentary about a year ago, actually. And it was about the good, the bad, and the awful about Ozempic at the time. And there was 3 parts to it, and the girl was coming over to interview me for the kind of positive side.
Yeah,
I wasn't diabetic, but I had used the drug off label to prolong my life and make my life better, health wise, all the rest of it. And then she was speaking to diabetics. That was the second part of it. And then she went and spoke to somebody who had, I think, anorexia. Mm-hmm. That was using it for that.
Yeah.
Like, Paddy, it's insane how easy this drug is available in the UK. It's like it's unlicensed. Now, I know it is.
Yeah.
But it's free for all,
So like, there are some really, really, so basically the difference between Ireland and the UK with this type of medication is, in Ireland, you need to go through your doctor, get a prescription for, say, Saxenda, more than likely here. Maybe if your doctor would support you with off-label Ozempic or something like that, brilliant, or Mysimba. But in the UK, to give you an idea, it's well within the realms of possibility that you could go on to a pharmacy website, do an online consultation where you just fill in some of your details. Some places will ask you for a photo, and that the next day you could have this medication. Like, that blows my mind. Some places will require to inform your GP so that your doctor is aware. Not everywhere does, though. I've been doing my research on this as well. Not everywhere requires a GP to be informed. Some places will ask for proof of things. Some will definitely do more due diligence on things, which is fantastic to see. And again, the difference is in the UK, it's perfectly okay for pharmacies to prescribe this medication. They have a right to that. That in itself isn't the issue. Yeah, that in itself isn't the issue. And like, I know my pharmacy up in the north where I get mine dispensed, where I bring my prescription, they have a weight management clinic, and they're so thorough and really detailed, and so much care to the people that are there, which is brilliant to make sure everybody's safe on the treatment. But in the UK, I have heard of things such as people putting cushions and pillows up their top to make them look bigger to get it.
When they're taking the photographs for the doctor.
Exactly. I've heard of people using AI photos, like to change their body shape. I have heard of people using other people's photos to get approved. Like, it is crazy.
The Wild West.
It is crazy. And then of course you have the multiple people that are like, oh, I just have like 8 pounds that I want to shift. Can I use this? And
my God, yeah,
stuff like that. Like, it's just wild. I find it unbelievable how easy it is to get the medication in the UK.
That's only because, Paddy, it's so difficult to get it here.
Yeah.
So difficult.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more regulation on these medications in the UK, and not because of the tragic event that we've seen report on this week, but more so generally. I think its ease of access is way too easy.
And it's coming. The regulation will be coming.
Yeah. Okay, the second story. Actually, we're going to stick with the UK for this one because I think it's interesting to see, do we think something like this could happen in Ireland? So at the moment, as we know, it is very, very difficult to get approved for even like Saxenda or that kind of medication. Like, some doctors are very, very against it. So one of the things that came out in the UK recently was, and I'm going to read the headline, unemployed could get weight loss jabs to return to work. And this is where the Prime Minister has acknowledged that more money was needed for the NHS, our equivalent of the HSE, and that the government also needed to think differently to ease pressure on the health system. And this is whereby they are butting up with Eli Lilly to essentially look at how can supply of Mounjaro be used to specifically target people who are out of work due to obesity or an obesity related condition to get them back to work.
And my God, did the public go crazy.
Like,
and the crowd went wild.
What's your gut thoughts on it, Belinda?
I think my gut thought at the time was this is going to stir a huge, massive pot, because there will be people out there that actually will have the thought, what? I'm overweight and I'm not working and he's going to make me take these drugs. That is not what the man said. The man did not say that. The man is saying, the Prime Minister is saying that he wants to make these drugs more available to people who want.
Yeah.
Who want to get well and who want to live longer and who want to go out and work and get back to the workforce.
Yeah.
That's what that man was talking about.
Yeah. I think I think it's very novel. I would have liked if the positioning focused more on, we want to use the medication to improve these people's health, their health, so that they're in a place to go back to work, potentially as a side effect, not the key driver to get them back to work. Because I think,
I don't know who his people were in the back room telling him what to bloody say, his advisors, because they certainly didn't advise him. It could have been handled far better than it was, that press release.
Like, Eli Lilly came out and positioned it better themselves. They were like, we welcome this opportunity to partner with the UK government on tackling and preventing disease and accelerating innovation to advance care delivery models. So I think, in fairness, they did a much better way of positioning this.
That's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one. Do you think would something like that ever come in Ireland positioned in that way?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I really don't think so, Paddy.
Gas.
No.
Like, I can just see it now.
Oh my God, yeah. Can you imagine? Oh my God, Facebook. I'd love to be there.
It'd be like fat people to get skinny jab to help them work. It would.
Yeah, it would. It would.
Oh, because that's what nearly happened in the UK. That's pretty much what people were saying. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, as opposed
We would take it a lot worse, though.
yeah, we would. Yeah. Oh God,
Yeah.
but it's wild.
Yeah.
But one of the other things, and I'm going to tie in with like how the medication is looking for approval, actually, because it kind of relates to this story. One of the trials that has been done in America as well or one of the approvals that has been investigated and potentially sought is to see if, so currently you have Mounjaro that is approved for a version of, say, diabetes, or approved for a version of obesity management. They're Zepbound and Mounjaro, similar to the way Ozempic is Ozempic and Wegovy. They just have two different names for two different medications. It is the exact same thing. But one of the other things that they're looking for as an access or route for access to this medication in America is as a cure for, or a treatment, for sleep apnea. Because it has such strong positive results for people suffering from sleep apnea. So that would mean...
You can speak to that yourself, can't you, Paddy? Can you speak about that yourself?
I don't know. I don't suffer from sleep apnea. I suffer from... like...
No, did you tell me once, sorry, maybe I'm wrong, that you sleep so much better now?
Oh, sorry. Yes, in terms of quality of sleep, absolutely. Yes. Oh, yeah, God, yeah. My quality of sleep. And I think that's predominantly probably because of the weight that I have lost. I'm thinking that's... Yeah. Or I don't know. Maybe it is medication. I don't know.
No, it is. That would be a factor.
Yeah.
Probably would have been a big factor.
But that means that potentially, if that got approved in the UK, it would also, I think, help remove some of the stigma around, oh, it's a diabetic or an obesity drug. Because then it would also be, oh, well, actually, it's a treatment for sleep apnea. Of course, the side effect could also be, it could help those people with their weight. But the prescribing criteria could be for sleep apnea.
Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, it would. Yep. Reduce some of the barriers for people that deserve a better quality of life.
Because, Paddy, the criteria is so tough over here.
Yeah.
It's so hard. You have to have an underlying condition, a preconceived underlying condition that weight will affect if you get heavier. So like
is it comorbidity or something like that they call it, whereby basically you need to have a condition that is in somehow a link to obesity or that could be made worse by obesity or stuff like that. Now that does include mental health stuff, and I would think for a lot of people, if you were to ask them,
unobtainable.
Yeah, like...
Can you imagine how long it would take somebody in Ireland to prove that they had mental health issues because of their obesity?
Yeah,
absolutely. You might as well be kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, and this is where thankfully we have some doctors that do see sense and can understand that this person's weight is impacting their self-confidence. Therefore, I see that as an impact on their mental health, and I'm going to support them. And we need more of that. We need more of that advocacy. So we do. Yeah. Belinda, I think I've talked enough, to be honest.
I'm not sure you have, Paddy. I'm just not sure you have. But I will say that I have done my hair, gotten changed, and have half my makeup done.
I'm here looking at the clock because I'm like, okay, I'm on the radio in 2 hours. I have to do another interview.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I have to go and do another interview at 7:20 this evening.
Paddy, what do you be doing to yourself at all?
I know, sure. Look, I've got to keep busy. So, Belinda, for today, to wrap up this episode of The Dose, any final words of wisdom, Jerry Springer style?
Any final words of wisdom? Advocate for yourself. If you feel that your life will be made better by any of these drugs, any of these GLP-1s, go into your doctor, advocate for yourself. Do a bit of research first and go in there and stand your ground. It's there. It can be got. We just have to work hard.
Cool. And
you go?
I'm going to stick with my old... I've got two mantras that I always lean on. One is never give up, and that is a deep meaning for me that we'll get into another day. But, and then the second one that I say, and I say this quite a bit, and it's because I honestly believe this so much, that like your weight, your shape, your size, absolutely none of that determines your value or worth as a human being, and never let anyone try and bring you down for any of those reasons. And I know that's much easier said than done, but just reinforce that idea that your weight, your shape, or your size does not determine your value or worth. How you live your life day to day as a human being, that's what impacts those kind of things.
And that's what matters.
And that's what matters. Belinda, what is your social media handles if people aren't following you?
It is Ozempic Insights, both on Instagram and TikTok.
Amazing. And mine on Instagram and TikTok is at Mounjaro Paddy. You'd also find me if you search Mr. Mounjaro on TikTok as well, because it likes to mess things up, and I have two names you can use. But yeah, Belinda, thanks very much. Really enjoyed this.
And thank you, Paddy. This was really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the chats, because we had no set agenda when we started talking. So
Paddy, I wasn't even aware we were going to do a podcast.
Well, look, there's one done.
There you go.
Yeah, folks, look, from both of us, thank you so much for listening, and thank you to everybody that has listened to any of the podcast so far, joined our lives. We do lives regularly on Instagram, so keep an eye out there. We do promote them usually for about a week beforehand.
And share.
Yes, it really helps. Or if you're covertly trying to find out information with this, and you have your homies that maybe just, your inner circle that you talk to, send them our way. We'll be more than happy. I know Belinda, no more than myself, we answer every DM, every question, every comment that we get. We spend hours.
We pride ourselves on that, especially with the DMs. I know I have a lot of them backing up in my unread, but I get to them, every one of them. It doesn't matter.
What I do is, a lot of people DM me on TikTok because that's where I have more followers, and I just wish TikTok would bring in a voice note function in their DMs, because
do they not have that? Oh my lord.
So trying to type it is a nightmare. So on Instagram, I will very regularly reply back with voice notes to people's questions.
I do every day. I have to, Paddy. I just can't.
It's way quicker.
Yeah.
But anyway,
absolutely.
Belinda, you go enjoy your night out. You look fabulous. So you do. That is a very questionable movement you're doing on camera. But a pleasure as always, Belinda.
Thanks, Paddy. Have a good weekend.
Mind yourself.
Bye.
None of the information contained within this podcast should be taken as personal medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare team before starting or changing any medical treatment.